Hey everyone, this is finalnub, and welcome back to the Modern Challenge review. This is round one, and we're up against an unknown opponent, and we're on the play. Now, before I go on here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the hand selection theory for this deck and other combo decks as well. So theoretically, all combo decks have a fundamental combo turn which they want to aim towards. For Grishobrand, for example, or Storm, I think it's turn 3. For slower but more resilient combo decks such as Ad Nauseam and Valakut, that's going to be turn 4. So given that, that's going to inform your mulligan and hand selection decisions. And it's going to do the same here. So after about 200 matches of this, I think of Neoform as more of a turn 2 deck than turn 1 deck. And basically, the question I ask is, one, do I already have it? And while that's kind of easy and kind of sounds like a stupid question, I've missed some unintuitive kill lines on turn one because of Chancellor of the Tango and Simmering Spirit Guide. So be careful about reading your hands. And number two, if I don't have it right away, I basically want to be one piece away from comboing off on turn two. That can be a Mana Source, that can be an Allosaurus Rider or a Pact of Summoner's Pact, or that can also be an Evolution spell. And the reason that I want to aim for the turn two is one, it's very possible if you mulligan wisely with this deck, and two, turn two is the key turn for our modern matches because on turn two, we can face down one of the many hate bears from humans, Logic Knot, Mana Leak, and Dovin's Veto from Control, or more discards, or a discard with Stubborn Denial from discard decks. Also, there's an added benefit of you going turn one Island Serum Vision or turn one Gemstone Go, and people won't know what you're playing. So, less informed blue-red Phoenix or Storm players may go, oh, okay, I'll go turn two Baral Go, or I'll go turn two Thingy Ice Go. So, as a bonus, the Deception is pretty nice as well, and a reason to aim for a turn two. So let's try to apply that theory into practice here. So I'm on the play. I have the mana, the lands needed for either evolution or neoform, and I also have the Allosaurus half as well. So Summoner's Pack can get Allosaurus Rider, and I have the two other green cards here. So given that I'm only an evolution spell away, and in fact I can cast the Eldritch Evolution on turn 2 as well as Neoform because of Simian Spirit Guide, I'm inclined to keep this. Let's see what past Final Nub did here. I do indeed um, keep, and I like leading on Island here because it kind of masks what I'm playing. Island Go can be a lot of different things, but I think there's an argument for playing the either of the Greenlands as well. I think it is a mistake because if I draw an Eldritch Evolution, I actually cannot play it because I'm lacking green mana, and Manamorphose cannot be used because that's also a green card that can contribute to casting Allosaurus Rider. So right off the bat, I already spot mistake here. It's really nice to do these sort of reviews because even for practice players of certain decks, there's always going to be mistakes then that you make, and if you make these subtle mistakes and don't recognize them, you're just gonna keep making them. So hopefully I won't make too many of those on this video. So let's see what our opponent's doing here. Alright, so we have a turn 1 Spire Bluff Go. And that can be Storm these days, that can be is a Phoenix, that can also be a Blue Moon strategy, or Blue Delver, which has also popped up lately because of Force Negation and Archmage's Charm, which is interesting. So I luckily drew the Neoform here. I didn't get punished for not playing my green source and drawing Eldritch Evolution. And now the question is, do I go for it? And the more basic question is, do you jam or does it get any better is the real question here. So let's think about it. So Blue Red Phoenix doesn't really play Spell Pierce these days. I think the flex slots are all going towards Surgical or Gut Shot. For Storm, there's going to be the three unsubs slash remands, and they're rarely going to have a spell pierce. I've never seen a list with a main deck spell pierce, so I think Spire Bluff is pretty safe here. The only way we really get punished is a Delver start that doesn't have a Delver but still has a spell pierce, which is kind of weird, but it's possible. So given this, I think I'm inclined to jam here and hope for the best. There is an argument to waiting because is a Phoenix or a Storm player is probably should be playing their Browse and their Thingy Ices out at that point. But I think I like jamming here. So let's see what past Final Nub does. And I just pass. And I think that's reasonable, but I probably would have preferred just jamming there, given that there's very little 1 mana interaction from a turn 1 Spire Bluff Canal deck. So I'm hoping that the opponent obliges by playing out a 2-drop. Ah, no such luck. And now, I didn't go for it last turn, but the fact I'm going for it this turn is a bit weird to me. But I guess nothing's really changed if I'm facing is a Phoenix, but something has changed if I'm facing Storm. So the difficulty of playing against a deck like Storm is it really doesn't get better because they can have remand and they can also kill you in 1 turn as well. So I like that I'm jamming here, but I would have preferred to jam on turn 2. Another nuance that not many people talk about is whether you can Summoner's Pact on upkeep. It's a marginal benefit, but if you have your whole turn planned out and you need to win this turn, you want to do it on your upkeep, so you thin the deck a bit. And I know common knowledge says thinning is negligible, but when you're trying to draw like 28, 35 cards and every bit of life gain matters to keep going, it will make a difference in the end. The counterpoint is that if you have to stop this turn, firing off a pact will be deadly next turn. So I do go for it here. Get my Allosaurus Rider. I go for the Neoform for the +1/+1 counter and the lesser mana, obviously. I keep the Summoner's Pact because it can be a wild counter to convert my Simian Spirit Guide into a Life Goes On or a Serum Vision mana, which does come up sometime. Also, it can get the Worm for a gain 15 as well. So let's see what happens here. Alright, it resolved. So at this point, if there is a Phoenix, the only real issue I need to worry about is surgical extraction. So I can play around that by holding my nourishing shoals for the very last moment. Otherwise, Storm should not have any resistance for us. So let's draw 7. So one of the other key concept that hopefully you guys can learn from these videos is that your library being divisible by 7 is key, because that means that you can draw your entire deck with Griselbrand, because Griselbrand draws by multiples of 7, and that means that you won't fizzle by not drawing enough of your Simian Spirit Guides or your life gain spells. However, there are moments where your library size is nowhere near the being divisible by 7, and you can manipulate that by casting Summoner's Pact to thin the deck a bit. You can also do Serum Visions to manipulate your deck, not your deck size, but your cards if you're desperate for a life gain spell and whatnot. So keep that in mind here. And Manamorphose, Street Wraith, if you're playing that, and Edge of Autumn also cycles. So you really want to make sure that you can minimize your fail rate and manipulate your library size by drawing as much as possible and as close to library size being divisible by 7 as possible. So a key decision point is whether I pact for the Worm here. And I don't think I do, because I want to keep the library size divisible by 7 right now. And if I draw a Worm, I would have regretted casting the Summoner's Pact. So let's draw 7 more. Alright, now we have some 7 mana spells which we can feed to the shoal. The issue is that I only have one Nourishing Shoal left, so I could, in theory, fizzle if I miss on the next bit, but we do have the Noxious Revival, so I think we can show pitching the Tangles, Chancellor of the Tangles, and then draw the Shoal, and then maybe Pact for the Worm after. Alright, so that's what I do. I revival the Nourishing Shoal to the top. Let's draw 7 more. So now that I have 2 more shoals here, I just decide to pack and start thinning my deck, even though I am going away from... No, I am not going away from the library size being divisible by 7, because I Noxious Revival the card away. So I'm going to put the worm into my hand, and it's still going to be 28 cards in the library. So I think with this, the win is academic. I'm going to keep gaining life. I'm going to draw my entire deck, including a Laboratory Maniac and a Simian Spirit Guide. And I'm going to be casting the Simian Spirit Guide, trying to draw the library. Sorry, trying to draw the last card of the library. And there are going to be some moments where your opponent's going to be waiting to bolt your Laboratory Maniac, so you can counteract that by having enough life to draw again in response, or having the library size to 0 so you can Street Wraith or Edge of Autumn in response, or simply just Pact negating it. Oops. Sorry about that. So I skipped some parts a bit, but um, I draw the entire deck here, and I draw the last card for the win. So that's game 1. All right, here for game 2 of round 1 of the Modern Challenge review with Neoform. How I sideboarded was putting in 1 more Pact Negation as well as the Hopo Gear Purse. So generally the weakest cards to cut that's going to be coming out most of the time is Serum Visions, which may not be fast enough, especially if you are on the draw. You want to maximize your chances of turn 1 or turn 2 combo as much as possible if you're on the draw. As well as Noxious Revival, Street Wraith if you're playing that, Safe Right Quest, and Edge of Autumn. As I said though, you really want to keep a high density of green cards, so you don't want to be cutting too many cards. Now, looking back, I don't really like the decision to bring in Hopa Gearper. If there is a Phoenix, they're always going to have. I think they're always going to have Lightning Bolt post board, and if there's Storm, then they might just like randomly grave shot you and um, then remand you afterwards. The counterpoint is that if either of these decks are playing Fluster Storm, Hopa Gearper does help with that. So there's merits to both, but I would prefer just bringing the Pact Negations more than anything. So let's see how we do in game 2. All right, so we have the Allosaurus Rider package here, so a pact with 2 green cards. We have the lands, so blue-green does make Neoform mana, but not Eldritch Evolution mana yet. I think this is close here, and Laboratory Maniac in your opening hand is not great, but you do have the benefit of the worm and the shoal being in your hand as well, so it makes fizzling less likely when you do combo. So even though this is not a great hand, I would lean towards keeping it. And I do as well. And one of the added benefit to playing this deck is that it demands so much from a lot of the different decks. Some decks like Grixis Shadows and Humans are naturally set up to fight you, but other decks aren't. So that results in our opponents frequently mulliganing to 6, 5, or even 4. So they don't have a play on turn 1, and we still don't know what deck they are. So let's think we're just going to play a land and say go. So it is Storm. And I think this matchup is pretty close here. They have a light mix of permission, pre and post board, and they can kill you out of nowhere, and more importantly, they can kill you on their own turn. So they can reasonably hold up a remand on turn 2, and then if we don't combo, they'll just say, okay, well, we'll play Baral, Ritual, Metamorphose, Gifts Ungiven, thanks for playing. So in this matchup, I would lean towards just jamming more often than not, and unlike like against Blue-White or is it Phoenix, like your defeat is going to be all in one turn, and you cannot wait for your pact negations. So let's see what we do here. Alright, so we are one turn away from the combo because we have the Allosaurus Rider and the Eldritch Evolution, and hopefully this is good enough. Just crossing our fingers here. Alright. Alright. Interesting. What could this be? Keep in mind that they did mulligan to 5, so this might be an Empty the Warrens. Alright, that hurts. Also, it'll let us draw fewer cards than normal with Gristlebrand. That's not irrelevant. Ah, it is Empty the Warrens. Alright, that's pretty good, but we do have the combo next turn, so this is probably the best 5 that they're going to get. Let's see if we can beat it. So this is the concept I was talking about. Our entire turn is planned out for us already. We are going to be casting a Summoner's Pact, and I think we want to maximize the chance of drawing a Pacto Negation or a Nourishing Show for our combo turn. So I would prefer to cast a Summoner's Pact here to thin our deck. And that's what I do here. We'll get our Allosaurus Rider. Alright, so that's not great here, but at least it's fodder for Allosaurus Rider. So generally speaking, the extra Summoner's Pact, Allosaurus Riders, and Chancellor of the Tangles are free fodder. Every other green card I think has their own function. I like having the Nursing Show on the Worm, which is a gain 15 if possible, in reserve. So I think it's clear that we pitch these two relatively ineffective cards. Alright, here's our Allosaurus Rider. Alright, let's jam and see what happens. Ah, so they multi 5 and they had probably the best possible start, which is a turn 3 9 power in play and a remand, which is unfortunate, but it happens. This deck is going to be demanding a lot from other people and mulliganing aggressively. It'll work out more often than not. Notably, we can still draw an Allosaurus Rider normally if we and still combo, but we did cast a Pact last turn. So unfortunately, that's not going to be an option for us because we cannot pay for it. So that's an argument against upkeep Summoner's Pacting, but given that our opponent was already posing a credible threat, I figured that we just needed to maximize our chance to combo that turn. So no regrets, it happens. And now we're going to game 3. We want to play, and let's see what they give us. So what do we have here? So we have an Allosaurus Rider, we have 2 of the green cards to feed into it, we have the Neoform, and we have the lands to cast, and we have the Pact of Negation. So in the business, they call this the nuts. So let's see what we do here. Alright, so we don't have to worry about a Spell Pierce or a Flusterstorm. Actually, Flusterstorm is something we cannot beat, but we're going to jam anyways. Thankfully, they did the old turn 1 cantrip, and we can go about our day. So we're going to pitch Allosaurus Rider, we're going to cast Neoform, sacrificing it, and it's off to the races. You're a heavy favorite to win from this point, now that Grizzlebrand's out. And it is an option to stop because you did not pay for the you did not cast the pact, and you should be careful about whether you need to keep going and casting pacts and losing if you miss, because Storm on turn 2, I don't think it's going to be able to kill very often. It has to be aligned with Ritual into Manamorphose into Bear into going off, or Echoing Truth, which I don't think they should have against us, but maybe they do. Oh, and a fun fact, we can't really beat a wipe away. So there's that. All right, we have a Gristlebrand. Let's draw 7 first. All right, so the reason why I cast the Pact here is because note that our library size is almost close to being divisible by 7, which is 42 being the next one. So I'm free to pact for the worm, given that we have a nourishing show already. So at this point, I've determined that because we have 14 more cards to draw with, because of the nourishing show for worm, I'm just going to go all in and try to win this turn. All right, now the deck is marginally thinner, and we keep going here. All right. We hit a mana, which is good. And keep in mind that the common constraints for the combo turns is 1, Simian Spirit Guides, or free mana, or a land if you have them. 2, life, so Nourishing Shoals and life goes on. And 3, the library size and being able to access all of that. Given that we are very close to being divisible by 7, and therefore being able to draw the entirety of the library, I think we're in good shape here. Alright, let's gain 15 more. Let's draw 7 more. Let's see what we have. Okay, we have Nourishing Shoal, which is great, and we have Life Goes On, which is also great. Keep in mind that we've played both of our lands, so we have 4 total mana available through Simian Spirit Guides. So theoretically, we can cast Serum Vision or Life Goes On, and that's good to know. So let's keep drawing. All right, so we have two Simian Spirit Guides, which is great, because at least we can start hitting, start playing Manamorphose now. I think given that we can still pact for 1 more card and still draw our entire deck, and there's still Worm remaining, I would prefer to cast our Summoner's Pact. Oh, we already had a Worm, so we're just going to keep going. And then we're going to be thinning the deck a bit more. Alright, draw 7, draw 7, draw 7. Everything else is academic here. Generally, you want to prefer to have a life buffer, so when you have 0 cards in the library with Laboratory Maniac, you can activate Gristlebrand multiple times or cast Life Goes On to draw again in response to anything disruptive, or cycle the Edge of Autumn. So I think that's what I'm doing here. Perfect. Okay, just excelling some Spirit Guides. There you go. So I do make the life buffer here, even though it doesn't matter in this matchup in this spot. And the other thing to notice, which might get some people, is that Wild Counter is the only way to filter mana, like Simian Spirit Guide into blue for Laboratory Maniac, without drawing a card for Manamorphose. Now, that seems a bit silly, but it can have a few applications. One, if you have only 1 Simian Spirit Guide, then Manamorphose cannot make you a green for Life Goes On or a Serum Vision, but Wild Counter can. And also, notice that our library size is divisible by 7. So if we draw 7 more, we'll have 0 cards. And if we don't have a wild counter anymore because we exiled it to cast Allosaurus Rider, then you're in big trouble, and you really should have planned for that earlier. And this is what I mean by it being very important to be cognizant about the library size and manipulating your library size with Manamorphose and cycling cards, as well as Summoner's Pact. Here, we have no such problem. Draw 2 0 cards in the library. We're going to cast Laboratory Maniac, and then we're going to win the game. So that was round 1, which was a win against Storm. So there's that, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to round 2.